close up right now so you don't see. But I have my paints to the side. I have the yellow, white, and blue. We're going to make our background blue, and then menorah and Happy Hanukkah yellow, and then the candles white on the bottom, yellow on the flame. So what we're going to do first is we're going to paint our menorah and our candles and our Happy Hanukkah. So you could just put those down, put your round somewhere to the side. And what we're going to actually do is we'll do our candles first. So when we paint all our small pieces, I actually only gave you guys sponge brushes. We're going to use sponge brushes to do, you should use one for all the small pieces and then another one, the other one for the background. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do the white part on my candles. And how I'm going to do it is I am just going to dab the paint on. So I have my sponge brush, move my paint a little closer, my sponge brush, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to dab the white paint on the candles. I'm not really concerned about my edges too much. So you'll need 2 coats of paint. I'm going to start separating them. You'll need 2 coats of paint. So put on one, and then by the time these early ones start drying, we can put on a second coat too. And white definitely needs 2 coats of paint because a little yellow will come out from the laser. And this is chalk paint you have, so it's a little thicker. Those dry for a second, then I am going to come back and start doing my second coat. If you get a little on the flame, that's okay because the yellow will cover the white. So I'm gonna let those dry a little bit. As I'm letting those dry, I'm gonna start painting my letters. I'll paint my menorah first. So I am gonna do my menorah yellow. And if you have other colors of paint, you're welcome to use those too, but these are the ones that I gave you. So I'm gonna paint my menorah yellow. I'm not even going to wash my brush at all. Sponge brushes are a pain to wash, so I wouldn't stick them in the water. So what I'm going to do is I just put some yellow on my white sponge, and that's okay because we want a mixture of yellow and white. And I'm just going to I'm going to paint this one. In order for the yellow to really cover the wood, it needs a little white in it. We're going to be adding 2 coats. So once this dries, we'll go back for a second coat. Just make sure I'm going to go all my edges. Just make sure there aren't any clumps of paint on the edge. Put that aside to dry. Well, that's aside, I'm going to take my Happy and I am going to start definitely sponging my Happy because that Happy is very fragile. So when stuff's fragile, I like to sponge it. Oops, got a little too much white on there. And once again, this will be 2 coats. So I'm going to go through, add a whole coat, and then I'll come back and add my second coats on everything. letters to the side, but I'm going to take my small brush, the non-sponge brush, and I'm just going to go around the edges to make sure any clumps of paint are spread out, especially on that letter, on those letters, because the script in between the letters tends to hold a lot of paint. All right, so once I do that, I'm going to set those all aside to dry. We won't see those until they're all dry and we can put everything together. And the next thing we have to do is we are just going to, I'm gonna put my menorah over here. We are just going to add the flames to our candle. So the flames are only gonna be yellow, so I'm gonna take my small brush. I'm gonna mix a little yellow and a little white on my little plate over here. And I am just gonna very carefully paint my flames. Once again, when you paint your flames, you'll probably have to do 2 coats. Always 2 coats. You could even do more if you want. And I gave myself a clean workspace just so I don't make everything yellow. Alright, so I put all my 2 coats on my flame. I'm gonna let all that dry. While that is drying, we'll paint our background. So you're gonna have to find your foam brush. Hanukkah is up there drying. And what I am gonna do next is I am going to find my round. So this round is 14-inch round. Make sure the wood grain is going left to right because that's how we're gonna paint. And what you're gonna do is you're going to find your sponge brush. I'm gonna do something a little different. So we are gonna put like a nice, like almost like a blue stain on our round. So what I am going to do, I'm gonna just move my happy that's over here. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a little bit of water on my sponge brush, mix it into my blue paint. I'm gonna dip it again. We want like a thin coat of blue. So what I am going to do is I'm just gonna start painting my blue. As I paint the blue, I want to water it down a little bit. Just put a little water on that sponge brush. And you'll see the more water that I have on it, the more it almost is like a stain. But you could paint it flat purple, flat blue, it doesn't matter. I just like that. I like when you see a little bit of the wood coming through. I'm gonna put some more water over here. And you won't really need a lot of paint because we are doing that staining. And if you wanted to really see, I have a lot of water right there, so I'm gonna get a paper towel. I'm just going to, after I paint it, just wipe it off a little bit. And you should really see the wood coming through. Looks good. So if you find my bottom is a little lighter than my top, so I'm just gonna go over that again. Let that set in. And then go around. So I'm gonna do my edges now too. edges, you could like kind of just paint. You don't have to worry about putting the water on your brush. And you want to do those edges because when your sign is hanging, you're going to see those edges. Sometimes I do it first, sometimes I do it last, whatever you prefer. All right, so once you have, take that, once you do your edges, you can wipe with a paper towel once again. I think that looks pretty good. You can see the wood grain, it looks beautiful. So at this point, I'm gonna let everything dry a little bit. I'm gonna go away for like almost a half an hour. But if there is, you might wanna look at your little parts and you could do touch-ups if you need to. Oh, that's gonna pop. Do touch-ups, you might have to touch up your white a little. Look, you make sure your yellow is even, and then we'll come back and put everything together. We have the Happy Hanukkah sign. It is all dry, so what we're gonna do is start gluing everything. And you're gonna have an option. I'm gonna glue down the menorah and the Happy Hanukkah, and then you have an option of putting, either gluing down the candles, this middle one's gonna be glued down, but gluing down the rest of the candles, or we gave you Velcro, and you could put Velcro on the back, so as each night goes on, you could light another candle. But before we get to that, I'm gonna start gluing. So I have my menorah, and I'm using a wood glue, but you could use a regular Elmer's, just make sure it isn't school glue. And I'm just adding, a little bit goes a long way. And most glue dries clear, so you don't have to worry about it. So then I have my menorah. I'm going to put that down. Okay. And then I am going to glue down that middle candle. Just a little goes a long way. Do is I'm going to take my brush and I put some glue in a little cup, and I am just going to paint the back of the Happy Hanukkah. Paint the back of it and then attach it. And you should lay it out because then you'll have everything like semi-straight, and when you go to glue it, you just take one piece up, put a little glue on it, and then put it back. And just be very fragile. The letters are kind of fragile sometimes, so be very gentle. A little bit. Once that's done, you just make sure it's all straight and beautiful. Usually you'll have a couple minutes before the glue like really sets. That looks about right. So now I gave you guys Velcro circles, and what I did is I cut them in half. And I'm going to do Velcro, but you could just glue them down if you don't want it to be like interactive. So then I'm going to peel off both sides. And the Velcro, there's a clear side and then there's a white side. I stick the white side to my little candle, and then I put my candle down. And I'm going to repeat that for every candle. Okay, so now I have my Velcro, everything's down. I'm gonna pat it down, and then you'll see when you lift up, your Velcro will be on your candles, and you have the clear little Velcro on the board itself. Make sure they all come off. If one comes off, you just put it back on. Line it up, pat it down. And that way you have now a little interactive sign. As the nights go on, just start putting your candles on. Ta-da. And there you have your Happy Hanukkah sign. All you have to do is in the back, if you want to hammer in that sawtooth hanger, and then you could easily just hang it up anywhere you'd like. All right, I hope you guys have a happy Hanukkah.